2024 is the most important election year of our lives. But in Kalamazoo County, democracy isn't once in a lifetime. It's an everyday effort by ordinary people like you to improve the well-being of our communities, our loved ones, and ourselves.
Hi, I'm Kerria Randolph from the Kalamazoo County Democratic Party, and our guest today is Thomas Whitener. And we're going to discuss his position and him running as a treasurer, correct?
Yep, I am Thomas Whitener. I'm the current Kalamazoo County Treasurer, running for re-election this year, and trying to keep pushing forward democratic ideals in the County Treasurer's office.
Let's start our conversation today by discussing the affordable housing challenge we have in Kalamazoo. They're similar to many other areas, but could you discuss what your office is doing to address some of those issues?
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk to you today. I'm really excited about it. So in Kalamazoo, anybody who's driven downtown knows that we have a housing or a homelessness crisis. Anybody who has tried to buy a home now knows we have a housing crisis. There's not enough stock on the market, and the houses that you do find are either wildly overpriced, seemingly, or at least in my experience, from what you'd expect, or are bought immediately by moneyed interests that can outcompete the people that actually want to live in those houses. My office, in the Kalamazoo County Treasurer's office, attacks this problem from the point of view of making it possible for people to get out of tax foreclosure. Most of the people who come into my office for tax problems have had every other problem in their life go wrong before they get to me. And so with our unique position in the office, we are not only keeping people out of tax foreclosure, which allows them to stay in their homes, from people who have lost their jobs, people who have issues with generational poverty, and seniors who are on a fixed income, allowing them to age in place, allowing people to maintain that home ownership status by connecting them with the myriad of resources that we have in Kalamazoo County. There are a lot of programs, there are a lot of organizations that can do the work to solve this constellation of issues that people find themselves facing before they get to my office. And I'm convinced, and the data bears out, that if we can get people to a point where they're back on their feet, the taxes become a non-issue. The taxes get paid. And so we have been working really hard in my office to reduce those foreclosures. And we've been very successful. Before I took office, for the 10 years before, with our previous treasurer, foreclosures ranged settled around 150 a year. And in my office, we have knocked that down to 50 or below each year that I've been in office. It's a lot of work. But it's absolutely worth it. We're changing people's lives every day with the work that we're doing.
To kind of elaborate on that, I've heard of the Tax Foreclosure Prevention Program.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate more on that? And I'm assuming that's helping, alleviate some of the tax foreclosures.
Absolutely. We have some great partners on the County Board of Commissioners, and also within the government of the City of Kalamazoo and the City Council. And each year they have generously granted us funds to address homelessness, or not homelessness, tax foreclosures that would otherwise happen. So people who have no way to pay their way out of it, but have a way, if they could get out from under that bill, to not fall into that issue again. And it's usually a matter of a few $1,000s. Not in the scale of things, in the scale of government's not a huge amount of money, but for the people that we're we're helping out, it is, the choice between staying in their home and having to move or possibly being on the street. Last year, we were able to use $120,000 toward tax foreclosure prevention. We spent every penny of it, and I would have spent more if I'd had the option. But it's helping people who are in situations that they didn't cause themselves, and they have no way out of to prevent that. We also provide extensions for tax foreclosure. So instead of foreclosing this year, we say we'll give you a year to work on the debt, and we work with people to find resources to help them out and give them an extra 13 or 365 days to get that problem solved. And we can then offer them another extension next year if they're working on the problem and showing positive progress, and they need that extra time.
Now, you said they can get an extension. How do people apply for the extension? Are they aware of the extension, or do we need to promote that even more so?
So it can always be promoted more. So when someone has delinquent taxes, each tax year that they have is noticed to them 56 times in the 3 years in which it's delinquent. And each of those says exactly what you need to do to solve the problem, which is either pay the bill or just come in and have a conversation with me. I will say that almost no one gets turned away without an extension if they come in and they ask for it and they're willing to work with us in good faith. That's my bar. If you're willing to work with me in good faith, I will work with you in good faith for as long as we have to, because these problems, it's much cheaper, it's much more humane, it's much more rewarding and better for our communities, in my opinion, if we can keep someone in their home and ensure that they have access to the services they need, rather than having them end up on the street where we're paying for emergency room care or emergency housing or food assistance. I'd much rather get someone access to the services in their home.
What is your plan if you're reelected to expand these programs or even promote these programs even more so?
So we are expanding these programs very aggressively. One of the things that I've asked for in our upcoming 2025 budget, and it looks like is going to be approved, fingers crossed, is a new position in the office for a foreclosure prevention specialist, which will be a social work position. And this person's job will be to have an interview with every person who asks for an extension to find out exactly what they need to stay out of tax foreclosure for good. And then throughout the year, to follow up with everyone who has an extension and a payment plan and a support plan, and make sure that they have the resources they need, they have the assistance to fill out the paperwork, which can be complex and an onerous burden there, and to ensure that they're keeping up on it. They don't forget, because life gets busy. I've got 2 kids. I know all about that. But I want to make sure that people have the advocate on their side working to keep them in their home. So we're expanding the program that way. We've also begun to integrate a mapping service through the GIS system that allows us to geographically connect people with aid organizations, faith-based organizations, houses of worship that are right down the road from them. There's almost 1,600 nonprofits in Kalamazoo County. And not all of them are aid organizations. There are a lot of professional organizations and that sort of thing. But many of them have resources to offer, and it's just not advertised very well. And so by compiling what we call our nonprofit switchboard, we are going to have a tool that we can then immediately connect people to the resources in their direct community to allow this, mutual support, mutual aid, to allow our communities to thrive in that way.
Those sound like, exceptional, proactive programs. And I think that's the best, let's stop or help the problem before, escalates and gets much worse. And I really like that social work position that you were talking about. Is that something new that's being created?
Yes.
Or is that?
That is a position and a program that I dreamt up 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
I have been asking for a while, and that program has just been aided by my chief deputy and my 2 deputies, And we're really, really excited to get that off the ground.
Could you also discuss a little bit about the River's Edge development that's coming to fruition?
Yeah, it's an exciting development. It's not something that the treasurer's office is directly involved in. Most of that goes through our housing office, but it's a fantastic opportunity to provide more housing opportunities in Kalamazoo County. I've seen some complaints, and I want to address these here because I think I have the space to address it. I've seen some complaints about housing developments, and not this one in particular, but many housing developments have been proposed around the county when they come in and it's going to be a market rate, development, or it's going to be, not a specifically called out affordable, housing development, or it's a rental opportunity. We have a problem with housing in Kalamazoo County and in Michigan and across the United States in general, where there isn't enough stock at any price point. So if you are wealthy and you're looking for, what I would consider wealthy now, I suppose it's upper middle class, but you look for a house and there's still a very limited housing stock. And so you have to drop your expectations and pay a lower price in a lower bracket with less amenities than you would expect. And that's fine. It's still very nice housing. But what that means is you're coming down with your financial capabilities from that upper echelon into that middle level and pushing those middle level people lower below you, which means that now they're bringing their financial capabilities, which far exceed those working class housing, into that working class market. And then those working class people are pushed into that low income market to try and find housing because everything's being bought out above it. And so in order to solve this housing crisis, we need to build more than just the affordable housing units. I'm not saying we don't need those. We absolutely do. We need aggressive programs to help people get into their housing. We need all of that at the bottom. That's important. We have to provide housing at all income levels, or the problem will never get solved. It's a complicated issue. I don't think it can be solved with action just here in Kalamazoo. We can help, and we should. I think it's a problem that needs to be addressed at the state level. It's a problem that needs to be addressed at the federal level. Because if we have all the resources here in Kalamazoo, we build all the housing, that just means people are going to move here from places where they're not. And then all of our resources are taken up, and all of a sudden we have the same problem everywhere again.
Now, do you have much of a relationship with the Kalamazoo County Land Bank? Are you guys?
Yeah, so the Kalamazoo County Land Bank is not a subsidiary organization of the Treasurer's Office, but I am the board chair of the Land Bank, and I do have a hand in project management, day-to-day operation, or project acquisition, resource acquisition, and sort of the day-to-day operations. I keep an eye on it. It's probably my favorite part about my job is getting to work with the Land Bank, because whereas the Treasurer's Office, we are helping people, and that's critical, and I love it. At the Land Bank, we're building things, and we're bringing economic opportunity into Kalamazoo County. And we're doing that because the Land Bank initially existed to eliminate blight and to take properties that no one wanted and demolish the structures that were on them to clear them, so we could return them to private developers who would build housing on them. The problem being that the neighborhoods that we acquired these properties in, market rate developers don't want to build housing because the money doesn't work out. The math doesn't math. Well, we've, in my 4 years as chair of the Land Bank, I've steered the Land Bank in a different direction. We're still taking properties from tax foreclosure when nobody wants to buy them, but there aren't a lot of properties that in tax foreclosure, so that well is dried up. So instead, the resources and the energies of the Land Bank are being refocused on affordable and attainable housing construction and economic opportunity generation. We just finished and put on the market the Eastside Square development, which is 6 affordably priced condominiums, as well as I believe it's 1,800 square feet of community commercial. The commercial hasn't been built out yet, but we have an accelerator program that will aid a local entrepreneur to come into that space and to be able to build it out to their heart's content so their business can have a leg up, as well as a reduced lease rate that scales to a market rate over, I believe it's 3 years. And so a restaurant is hard enough business to start on its own, even if you have, other restaurants and you have experience. If you're starting fresh, it's almost impossible. We hear the statistics of how many restaurants fail in their first year. We're trying to maybe make that not true by giving the support necessary to have that succeed, to create jobs, to create opportunity, and then to create the housing that they want to live in. We have a scattered site brownfield plan with our 266 properties that we own through the land bank. And we just received some funding that I will talk about in a couple of months when all of the lawyers finish signing off on everything. But it's going to be about $2 million to start building houses on 266 lots. And then we'll sell those houses, and then we'll build more houses with that money again. The nice thing about the land bank is we don't have to make a profit. And so we can keep those prices low to almost cost and just recycle those funds into more housing over and over and over and over again.
Well, you started something that is somewhat enticing. Projects you were just talking about. Are you at liberty to discuss it at all?
Which ones?
The one with the $2 million that you said.
So that's funds that we, it's a capital stack that we're putting together from all sorts of different organizations. We work really closely with LISC, which is a local initiative support corporation. We work really closely with the county. We work really closely with the Gilmore Foundation, with the Kellogg Community Foundation, with the Stryker Johnson. So we, if you're in Kalamazoo and you want to build housing, the land bank is a great place to come and talk to us because we can get it done.
Because home ownership is a way to build generational wealth.
Absolutely.
And I think we talk a lot about affordable housing, which we all know is sorely and desperately needed.
Yeah.
But also very few times do we hear people talking about home ownership or assisting people to buy their first homes. Are there programs or policies out there that can help residents in Kalamazoo have their own home or buy their own home?
Absolutely. And that was one of the key points of the East Side Square development I talked about. Those are condominiums. They are not apartments. We are not going to be renting those. They are for sale. We specifically wanted to create home ownership opportunities. The other program that we've got going on at the land bank specifically is called Homeward Promise. We were lucky enough to come into possession with the help of a local philanthropist, to come into possession of 56 properties. 28 of those are occupied rentals. And so we have tenants in rental situations. And they're not the best upkept houses, shall we say. The landlord was never going to speak bad about them because they gave us the opportunity to do the project I'm going to talk about. But let's just say their maintenance was not up to my standard. So we're doing a couple of things. First is we're fixing that problem. We are putting money into these home ownership or these homes in order to get them up to the point where they're a dignified place to live. The second thing that we're doing is aiding the residents that live in those homes to get the credit repair, to get the financial education, to get the necessary pieces of the puzzle in order to be mortgage ready so that they can then buy the homes that they currently live in and increase home ownership without having to move. The last thing I want to do is come into a community that has a vibrancy to it, that has a population and a group of people who know each other. These are communities where their grandmother's house is right down the road. I don't want to chase your grandma out because she can't pay an increased rent. That's not what I'm here to do. I want to increase homeownership because, like you said, it's the best way to build generational wealth in this country. But I want to do that without evicting people and without gentrifying. That's the word. The last thing I want to do is gentrify these neighborhoods because I love the community we have here in Kalamazoo, and I want to keep that, but I want to put the people who live here in a more secure position.
Okay, let's change gears a little bit.
Sure.
The county treasurer records all revenue that comes into the county, and
Yep.
obviously you're the custodian of all those funds.
Mhm.
How are those funds invested, and what's the oversight needed to ensure financial responsibility?
Absolutely. So you're right. We receive all funds coming into the county, and they pass through my office, and then we take them to the bank, and then we manage the bank accounts, as well as our investment accounts. County currently has an investment portfolio that sits right around $143 million. We are currently beating inflation on those, making right around, I believe, 4.5%. And a large reason for that is recently we have taken our portfolio, which was very short while interest rates were coming up. You keep your duration short so that you can reinvest and ride that interest rate up to the peak. But as we saw the Fed start to talk about rate cuts, we started to take that portfolio a little bit longer so that we could perhaps ride that peak a little bit longer while rates dip below it. And we've been pretty successful at lengthening that out. All of our investments are governed by Public Act 20, which governs very strictly where we can invest our funds. I can't take all of the county's money and go buy Tesla stock. I wouldn't, but
Thank you.
but I'm also not allowed to. Largely, we're allowed to invest in bonds. We're allowed to invest in certificates of deposit, CDs. We're allowed to invest in pooled funds, or cooperative funds, where a large number of governmental entities get together, pool their funds into a much larger pool, and then have an advisor manage that. And municipal bonds, that sort of thing, and then commercial paper, which is a very short-term, 270-day maximum bonds issued by corporations. And I'm not in a whole lot of commercial paper. I'm a very liberal Democrat, but I'm very conservative with the county's money as far as my investments go. I don't like taking risk. One of my qualifications is a CPFIM, or Certified Public Funds Investment Manager, and that's a certification, a course of education that teaches you the best practices for investing public funds, like we do at Kalamazoo County in the Treasury. And we ascribe to a rubric through this education called SLY, SLY. Meaning that your investments are ranked or graded by safety, and then liquidity, and then yield. So how safe is it? How likely is it to default? Most of our investments are in United States government bonds. And if those fail, we have a lot bigger problems than our bonds failing, because that means that the federal government has folded. Then you look at liquidity. So how quickly can you get those funds back out without penalty? And that's why we keep a portion of our portfolio in overnight money market funds, which allow us to pull next day in case, for instance, we had the Portage tornado. And while we didn't have to expend county funds for that, we were able to draw on other sources, and we'd have to draw on our investments. I was on the phone with our county administrator that day saying, look, I can have this much money overnight. I think that the number was something like $75 million. I can have $75 million in our bank account overnight if we need it for emergency activities. You tell me what we need and we can do it. And that's why liquidity is the second most important thing. And the least most important thing is yield, which is how much money those investments are making. Because we're not a for-profit entity. We don't have to make money on our dollars that are invested. Mostly we're just trying to beat inflation so that we can have our money keep its buying power. So when we have emergencies or we have projects that need to be undertaken, like the construction of the new Pratt Center, we have that cash on hand that we can do things like that. And so we're very careful about where we invest. We report our investment activity to the board on a monthly basis. My chief deputy is a CPA, certified public accountant, and he's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And he makes sure that our investments are tracked really well, and then the two of us work together on strategy there for how to invest those funds, what the market is doing, how it's moving around. I watch a lot of financial news to make sure that we're on top of things and we don't get caught by surprise.
I have a question for you as well, because obviously you're running for re-election.
Yes, sir.
And you're obviously running against an opponent.
Yeah.
Could you tell us the key difference between you and your Republican opponent?
The biggest difference, there's a lot. So I'm 38 years old. He's 71. I am a systems focused person. I worked in software for a long time. I like to build things that run on their own and don't break. I like to solve problems at the root of their causes. I'm a new father, relatively new father, and I was a realtor before I was the county treasurer. I'm focused on our community, on keeping people in their homes. And while the financial pieces of the county are absolutely critical to allow us to provide services and to do the things that are necessary, I'm focused on more than just our bottom line. County treasury is an incredibly complex position. It's not just one thing. We wear a lot of hats. And my opponent seems focused on one of those hats and has told people that that is all that the treasury is. Mm-hmm. And that's simply not true. Foreclosure prevention, keeping people in their homes, means that our tax base is healthy, which means that our revenues are healthy. Building affordable housing and creating economic opportunity, that creates an increased tax base, which means our revenue is healthy. Tracking that revenue is critical, and we've put into place an incredible team to do exactly that, and to make sure that we're available to solve problems for the other internal departments, including the Board of Commissioners, that we keep up with all of the software changes, the accounting rule changes, and everything that comes down from the state of Michigan. And we have been doing that. We've never missed a payment. We've never defaulted on anything, never had our credit rating reduced, and God willing, we never will, because the work that we put in and the systems that we put in place prevent that.
I have a question for you, because obviously when you're running for re-election, mm-hmm. It's like a job interview.
Yeah.
To the community.
So I guess 260,000 of my closest neighbors.
Right. So I guess my question to you that we would all ask, why do you want the job?
I have worked with first-time homebuyers. I have worked with people, as a federal officer, as my first job out of college. I've worked in service. I've worked in a lot of different places. And this is the most challenging, the most humbling, and the most rewarding work that I have ever done. I get to talk with people on a daily basis, and I have the tools at my disposal to solve their problems and to change their lives. There is absolutely nothing better than that, and I'm good at it. It's always nice to do something that you're good at. And when you can do that and also make a significant difference in someone's life, I don't want to do anything else. I love the team I put together. I have an incredible team of brilliant go-getters who are not satisfied with the status quo. They want to be pushing, they want to make it better. We want to work ourselves out of a job, frankly. So that there is no tax foreclosure problem. There is no housing problem. That's how hard they want to work. And I'm constantly impressed with them, and just sharing an office with them is an honor. The work we do locally in politics, the Biden administration, the Harris campaign, the national politics are fascinating and interesting, and they can solve big problems, and they deal with big issues, and they get all the attention. But here at the local level, at the county level, we make changes in people's lives every day. And that is just unbeatable for me. I don't like campaigning. I don't know many politicians who do, to be honest. But I will happily campaign if it lets me keep doing this work. Kalamazoo County is an incredible place to work. It's an incredible place to live. I moved here from Northern Italy and stayed in February. And maybe that speaks to something wrong with me. But I love it here. I love the people. I love I love the land. I love the how close this community is to nature. And I just want to make it into the place that we all know it can be, where economic opportunity and housing opportunity and the education for your kids and all of that is right there and available to everyone. I know we can do it. I know I can do it. And with the power of the Treasury, with my colleagues on the county commission, and across our county government, I know that we can push this place that we all love forward. And I'm really excited to get to do it for another 4 years.
Well, we'd like to thank you today. We really appreciate it. And once again, I'm Kerria Randolph for the Kalamazoo County Dems, and we would like to say goodbye and see you next time to Thomas Whitener.
Well, thank you, Kerria. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was a blast. It was a good time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed our show, please like, follow, and subscribe through whatever medium you're watching this on or listening to this on. And if you're interested, we would really appreciate any donations at kzoodems.com. That's KZOODEMS.com. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Inside Kalamazoo is a production of the Kalamazoo County Democratic Party, hosted by Kerria Randolph, with administrative and scripting assistance by Pam Jackson, production engineering and editing by Mike Ryder, theme music from the Krellboynes, produced by Dakota Shapiro, Pam Jackson, Gavin Rance, and Mike Ryder.